Welcome to The Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey, it's Holden, and I am an alcoholic, and today I'm being joined by Arthur.
Hi, my name is Arthur. My sobriety day is 8/30/21. I've been sober 124 days, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I currently live in Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, thank you for joining us today. So I know that many people deal with struggles of mental health, and many times that could play a big part in being an alcoholic. So Arthur, what is your experience with mental health and alcoholism?
Mental health is a huge part of my story. I've I suffer from PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I suffer from SPD, which is split personality disorder. A lot of the times in my life, I've always been somewhere else, whether, it was at the hockey rink or whether I was, somewhere in the far distant future, like getting married. I've never been where my feet are, and I never lived in the moment. When I started drinking, let me go back. My first drink, I was about 10 or 11 years old, and it progressively got worse to the point of where I would drink to drown out my own thoughts. I would drink to escape from what I believed was reality, and I couldn't separate my life as an alcoholic versus when I wasn't drinking. I had a very tough childhood growing up. Single mom, and my grandmother raised me. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of lonely, cold, dark moments when I was young, as far back as I can remember. So when I was first introduced to alcohol, I was able to numb the pain I was feeling. Though the pain wasn't necessarily all physical, I can remember times where, I would be berated for not making my bed, but I used that as an excuse to drink. I can remember also too being told that I never amount to anything. I've been told some of the most unforgivable things one person should never say to another human being, let alone a person you love. And I drank over that. I drank to have confidence, but I also drank to accept that I would never amount to anything. I would never be a father. I would never be a son. I'd never be someone who could be loved. I drank to the point with my mental health, and it was diagnosed as far back as I can remember because my parents' divorce was very messy. And I saw a lot of things what alcohol could do. It could give you courage. It could give you false sense of security. And it was my security blanket to deal with all my problems, such as, girlfriends or experiences with just dealing with life, like someone saying like, I don't like you. I would drink over that.
So are you saying that like when you came up on certain experiences, like with girls, as you just said, that they don't like you, that kind of triggered the past of your parents, like you said, that they gave you all this like massive sense of self-esteem issues. So is that why like every time you encountered this person saying that they don't like you, or you maybe got that feeling that triggered drinking again?
Yes. It protected me from me. It protected me from feeling pain. It protected me from dealing with raw emotions such as sadness, anger, being uncomfortable. I drank to only feel things that I drank to feel everything that was positive, though I'd feel it for a minute. You know, whether it was confidence to talk to the pretty girl at the party or, you know, go be able to tell someone off or, you know, pretend that I was like, you know, Billy Badass.
Yeah, because I know that alcohol releases the endorphins of happiness. So anytime you kind of fell from that happiness place, that's what you were seeking out, was that blanket of happiness, which liquor brought you. And so anytime you never seemed happy, that's when you immediately suck out the bottle, was to give you those feelings.
Yes. To be completely transparent on this podcast, you know, I do, and I, not anymore since I've been sober and I've done the proper channels of getting help. It's okay to ask for outside help. I personally do. I dealt with voices and a split personality, you know. The person in my head that I could hear from time to time, her name was Sabrina. And Sabrina, I was 16. I was at my friend's house at a bonfire drinking 151. And we were doing other substances, but that's not the point. She told me to go out for a drive, and I did. She told me that I couldn't live with her or without her. And if you wanted to stop, you have to do the unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
I still battle with those things today. But today, being sober, I can face those fears and insecurities. And I can face the fact that no matter how much I drink, it doesn't go away. I also know that no matter how much I drank then, the hangover alone was bad enough.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sabrina played a major role in why I isolated myself from myself. And I've never been incarcerated, though I have been in a mental institution. And I hit a breaking point 124 days ago, being in a mental institution and asking for help because I was tired of hearing the voices. I was tired of hearing the negative things that were repeated over and over and over again. I drank like the song, you know, there's a message in a bottle. That's how I drank. And every time I finished one bottle of, you know, Sky Vodka Blood Orange, it was my favorite, I never found that message. And that was a horrible feeling because not only was I doing it at such a young age, but it transferred into my athletic career, my working career. It translated into how I was as a, you know, a productive, actually unproductive member of society.
So I do want to clarify when it comes to this Sabrina person that you're speaking of. This is a voice in your head, not an actual physical person, correct?
It does not exist. She is not real.
Okay.
She is someone that only I've been able to see, and she came around when I was about 14.
Okay. So do you think that Sabrina, what age were you when you actually started drinking?
I was 10.
Okay. So maybe Sabrina is this alcoholic figure. Do you think that, like, as you said, you can't live with it, can't live without it? So do you think she was, like, speaking through the alcohol?
Yes. As stated before, with my PTSD and the childhood trauma that I dealt with, I'll just come out and say, you know, I've been sexually, physically, and mentally abused. You know, as young as, I think the first encounter I've had with abuse, I was about 11 or 12. Which one it was, I can't tell you. I can't remember.
Yeah.
She helped me get through my hardest times. It was someone that never left me. It was the only woman that I had in my life that never abandoned me. My dad wasn't in the picture. My mom, spent a lot of times out and about and did the best that she could, though her way of dealing with problems was drinking 2 or 3 bottles of wine or screwdrivers or Jack and Coke. I saw that as okay, and I hit a point where the alcohol was not enough to numb.
Mm-hmm.
The alcohol needed more, and I dipped my toes into other substances. But alcohol is my main culprit because I hit the point of where I would work and show up very intoxicated. I would show up and do the unthinkable, like drinking, driving. I would do the unthinkable. It takes a lot for me to even say these things out loud because I don't like talking about this stuff.
Of course.
It's hard to admit to an audience that someone, well, actually, let me rephrase that. It's hard to admit out loud that I hear voices in my head and this person has a name. She has hair, she has eyes, she has certain clothes, she has a certain smell. I can feel her, I can touch her, I can kiss her, It's hard to admit that, though it was kind of like how they talk about one lives to drink, only lives to drink. I lived only to appease her at a certain point in my life. It didn't matter about my job, my family, my career. I dropped out of college. I gave up a chance to play professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted her love and comfort because my mom wasn't able to be there. Growing up as a child, I was taken in as a kid. It really was a struggle to get out of my own head. And as stated earlier, I drank to escape my own thoughts, and trying to escape from yourself, it's impossible.
Yeah, and I know that things I was speaking about trauma that happened in the past and things that are difficult to admit is of course, I mean, that is hard, but the thing is ultimately some of these listeners that are going to be listening to this can find that similarity and allow them to know that they're not alone with the struggle, that many people that deal with that think that they're alone. So it'll allow these people to know that they're not alone, and even with that issue, that they can find help and get assistance to be able to move forward and be able to understand why they have those feelings and be able to understand how to cope with it, to move on in life and not have that crutch. So, I mean, I appreciate you kind of coming out with that because it is a vulnerable thing to state. But in order to admit that we need help and why we abuse either liquor or substance, we have to be vulnerable and ask for help. So,
yeah. I also wanted to state, too, that as I was stating before, being imprisoned in your own mind is probably the worst prison. Yes, I've never been incarcerated, but as stated before, I've been in a mental institution.
mm-hmm.
The worst part of my experience for me was I was okay with being institutionalized. I was okay with being in a padded room and everything was safe, though when I went in, I was under the influence, but when I came out, I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the toughest thing for me, being 124 days sober, is my only option is to feel and not numb. I also want to come out and say that suicide is a huge part of my story because there have been multiple occasions, 5 to be specific, where I have thought about disappearing.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I know that we've touched on why you feel that the abuse of substance and liquor were there. So I know that you're part of the 12-step program. So, I mean, what led up to the final straw for you to finally ask for help and seek it out?
The final straw for me was I hit a point in my alcoholic life where it was open the bottle or pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
I had two options. And in some literature that I do read, they said you can either keep going to the very end or you can ask for help. And at that moment, and I know the subject of religion, God, higher power, whatever it may be, but I asked for help. I said, save me or kill me. And the 12-step program that I'm a part of was the only people that took me in. And a power greater than myself led me into these rooms and be a part of a 12-step program. Gave me the ability to be able to share my story openly without any repercussions. I'm very open about my recovery. Another thing I want to touch on is when I was a child, I heard someone say, or it might have been something I said, and it helped me get through some very difficult times. The speak with no voice is like making a symphony without music. And if you can't have sound, you'll never hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholism and my mental health took away my voice. Being clean and complete abstinence from all substances, mind-altering substances. I'm able to do that today. And many of you will question and say, Arthur, if you have mental health issues, how can you take mind-altering substances? I take medicine to help me balance my chemical imbalance in my brain, to do the next right thing, to be a productive member of society, to not have the thoughts of, I lose my job. Oh, well, I'm just going to go drink over it, or I'm going to do the unthinkable, such as suicide. I don't have to live that way anymore. And I do seek outside help. And some people don't want to. The 12 steps and the willingness to be open-minded and being able to say, yes, I have a problem, to not just the 12-step program, but to other people, have been able to really open my eyes to a bigger picture to say it's okay not to be okay.
That's very true. I know, and I want to, with all the listeners listening, state that taking medication when it comes to assistance with mental health is still maintaining sobriety. There's a difference between taking a medicine that is prescribed by your doctor and abusing the medicine that is being prescribed by your doctor. So if you take pain pills according to what the doctor states, you are still sober. But the moment you start double or triple dosing that medication beyond what the doctor, that's when you start needing to recheck your sobriety. So, I mean, you can take medication for mental health and still maintain your sobriety.
Yes, I would concur with that statement. It's important to understand that the people in these rooms, in these 12-step programs, are not your doctors. They're not your therapists. They are someone who have a common problem that want the same solution. A part of our literature, they say, the first word is we.
Yes.
I can't do this alone. Arthur, left to his own devices, will fail. But we can get through this. And for the first time in my life, I've had people stand next to me and not in front of me, not behind me, not so far in the distance where I can't see them. It's important to realize that there is a great satisfaction in numbers. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. There's someone there that gets it.
Yes, and the people in the program throughout your recovery, these people, like as Arthur said, will not be in front of you or behind you. They will walk with you hand in hand to make sure that we are here to help each other obtain sobriety and success in sobriety.
What's important too is, as I stated earlier, that my life had no reality. It was either the alcoholic life or the future tripping life. And being sober has helped me realize what reality is. It's where my feet are in the state of Texas. It's not back in my childhood home going through what I went through. It's not back at my dealer's house when I lived in the state of Florida. My feet are in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm here talking to whoever's listening that it's okay to say that you need help. It's okay to say, yeah, I have a lot of deep-rooted issues, because in our literature, they say alcohol is but just a symptom of our problems. And I'll say it again, alcoholism or alcohol is just a symptom of our problems. Arthur, as in myself, has a lot of childhood trauma he never dealt with. I also had a hard time admitting that to other people a part of this 12-step program until other, men and women and people, say, me too. I understand. That insanity of, you're crying while you're drinking because you don't want to do it, but you can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stop because I wasn't okay in my own skin. And Sabrina said the same thing, that it's either me or nothing. And there have been plenty of times where I've had the opportunity to no longer be on this earth, but my alcoholism took over. It literally took me to a darker place to keep drinking instead of just stopping. It could have ended right then and right there.
Yeah, so do you think one of our main issues, as you said, alcohol is just but a symptom, that the main issue at hand is any trauma that we may have dealt with in our past, that it's harboring that trauma and just not letting go?
Letting go is the key to finding a solution. It doesn't matter how long it takes. In the sense, in my story, I was at the door for a solution, and I clawed on for dear life to not let go. When I was doing my alcoholic life, one of my favorite things to say to people, God forgives, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of illegal activity. I've done a lot of heinous crimes. But God forgave me, and I can forgive them. It's hard to forgive people who hurt you. It's not easy. At the same time, letting go is the key to finding a new meaning of life. It's a new way to live. When I stated earlier that we don't have to live that way anymore, it's true. I don't live that way anymore, where I love everybody for who they are, what they believe. And instead of finding all the differences, I look for the similarities. And that's important because a lot of people don't talk about mental health. And a lot of people don't talk about their problems publicly or even on podcasts. They don't want to talk about it. It's like, grab life by the boots and just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, coming into these rooms and working with other people and listening to other stories, of course, with your trauma, did you expect to come in here and have differences with everybody? Did you expect to have the amount of similarities that you've had with these people?
My first meeting, I heard the words, if you're looking for religion, you're looking for a seat in heaven. But if you're looking for spirituality, you're looking for a place out of hell. That alone clicked, and I had this human-like feeling I haven't felt in a long time. My hair raised. I got like hot and cold at the same time. I had this very human experience, and I felt something come over me that said, me too.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a different version of hell. We all have a different version of what our bottoms look like. Though everyone that I've met so far in a 12-step program, they're looking for a way out. And we are doing it together. The similarities, I did expect to hear. My first experience coming into a 12-step program was very positive. My experience in a 12-step program was, I don't know how to say this. It was very relieving to know that I wasn't the only one who had a drinking problem. And I sat at the same table as professional athletes, doctors, lawyers, construction workers, homeless people, people a part of the LGBT community, LGBTQIA community. We all have a problem. We're all looking for a way out. Though there are many instances where I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a solution that I can talk to you. I never looked for the differences. Though at the same time, when I first came into the rooms, I felt like that where I was at when I first walked into the rooms, I did not expect to go through what I'm going through now. And I will admit, this is not my first time in a 12-step program. I had to lose everything in order to find something greater than myself. I had to lose my home, my family. And not everyone's bottom has to be that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it took what it took. And one of the best things that someone ever said to me was, are you done? What else can you do? You lost everything. The only thing you haven't done is hurt yourself to a point you can't come back. And I sit here today saying that it's okay that I lost everything. I'm accepting reality for what it is, and I'm growing and learning from my mistakes, because I can't change what happened yesterday. I can live in today and build for a better tomorrow. It's not easy, but you have to want it and you have to need it. And that's what I've gotten out of these first 124 days, because I'm done. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I have something to live for. I've found a calling to doing the next right thing, and I want to help the next person, no matter where you are, where you're listening, what you're doing, and say, hey, I need help. No one in these rooms has ever came in here on a winning streak. But when I came in these rooms or into a 12-step program, they took me in for who I was to help me become who I am and who I'm going to be. And it's important for anyone listening to know that you are not alone, no matter how isolated you do feel.
Yeah, I mean, and I do appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, nobody is alone in the struggle of addiction. I do want to thank you again, Arthur, for coming on here and kind of sharing your story with everybody and letting people know that it's okay to ask for help. And because if you ask, that's when you will receive it. And the help of these rooms and the fellowship here is a huge amount of help to a lot of people. So from my understanding, I assume you identify as a straight male. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So being a gay-hosted podcast, what is your perception? What would you recommend to the LGBTQIA plus individual that is fearful about stepping into these rooms?
As stated before, if you're looking for religion, you're looking for a seat in heaven. But if you're looking for spirituality, you're looking for a place out of hell. Many people in the community have a hard time with religion, and no matter who you love, how you identify, your belief system, your politics, it does not matter, because staying sober to live your life is important. And love is spelled with the same 4 letters. It doesn't matter what kind of love it is. Love is something that you can't see, but you feel it. And there is a love in these rooms, no matter who you are. No matter if you identify as trans, if you identify as gay, bi, it does not matter. It's important to, for me, it's important to set your boundaries, because it's important to set your boundaries. One bad egg, there is always one bad egg no matter where you go in the world. My experience in the rooms has always been roomy and inclusive. And the way I do my 12 steps is love is love. There's nothing else. And being a part of a gay-hosted podcast, even if it wasn't a gay-hosted podcast, my stance on the support of the community is unconditional.
Yeah.
And it's important that we practice all these principles in the 12 steps in all of our affairs. And love is love. That's all I have to really say about that. And, my door's always open, my number's available, and I may not understand everything you've ever gone through, but I will be there to listen to those who weren't able to listen for me.
Yeah, well, thanks, Queen.
Thanks, girl.
So is there anything you want to kind of close out with before we end the show?
We will not regret the past, nor will we wish to shut the door on it.
That is honestly a very impactful statement, because I know we all have a past and we must remember it, but never close the door. So again, my name is Holden, and thank you, Arthur, again, for coming on here and letting everybody know what your experience has been. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast, or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes, as well as our very own sober-owned shop, featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember, everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.